Welcome to this second podcast episode just for you, centered around the life and myths of Countess Elizabeth Báthory. You can imagine it as part of a true crime podcast series called The Darkest Corners After the Postmortem, where each episode dives into the lives of history's most disturbing criminals, life and myths. The real-life Countess Dracula, Countess Elizabeth Báthory. Welcome to The Darkest Corners After the Postmortem, the show where we dive into the lives of history's most terrifying figures. I'm your host, Sandra Pink, and today we're exploring the case of one of Hungary's most notorious and chilling killers, Elizabeth Báthory, the real-life Countess Dracula. Brace yourselves because this story will take us deep into the horrors of Hungary. Countess Elizabeth Báthory, often called the Blood Countess or the real-life Countess Dracula. She was a Hungarian noblewoman who lived from 1560 to 1614. Her dark legacy and notorious reputation as a sadistic serial killer stemmed from horrific legends surrounding her, though separating fact from fiction is challenging. Elizabeth was born into a powerful, wealthy family in Hungary, part of the Kingdom of Hungary's noble community. She was well educated, spoke multiple languages, and had influential connections, including a relative who was a cardinal and another who became a prince of Transylvania. At 15, she married a count, and the two resided in the isolated count's family castle, which became infamous as the alleged settings for her terrifying crimes. The horrors surrounding Báthory began in the early 17th century. Rumors started spreading that young servant girls who entered her castle never left, or if they did, they were scarred or dead. Witnesses claim that she tortured and murdered hundreds of young girls, allegedly to preserve her beauty by bathing in their blood. Some accounts even claim she experimented with various forms of torture, inflicting unimaginable pain on her victims. In 1610, King Matthias II of Hungary had suspicions of the growing rumors and ordered an investigation. The Countess was arrested and her accomplices were tried and executed. Due to her noble status, she wasn't executed. Instead, she was confined to her castle, allegedly walled into a small room with minimal openings for food. She died in 1614, 4 years later. The scale of her crimes remains a topic of debate among historians. Some argue that the allegations were exaggerated or even fabricated by political revives looking to seize her family's wealth and lands. The number of victims is also disputed, with estimates running from a few dozen to over 600. These uncertainties fuel speculations that the Countess was either a ruthless murderer or even a victim of political conspiracy. Despite the doubts surrounding her story, Countess Elizabeth Báthory's terrifying legend continues to captivate imaginations. Her myths has inspired tales of vampires, particularly because of the blood-bathing legend, and is frequently associated with Dracula-like themes in popular culture. Today, we look back at Countess Elizabeth Báthory's crimes with horror, but we also have to ask ourselves what conditions allowed this to happen, and could it ever happen again? Thank you for joining me on The Darkest Corners after the postmortem. Until next time, remember, the darkest stories are often hidden just beneath the surface.